Sustainable Development, Telecommunications and Broadcasting. Also with us is Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, the Minister for Health, Wellness and New Health Investment, and the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Letitia Lestrade-Wyke. And so as not to prolong any anxiety that you may have concerning the content of this briefing, we welcome the Minister for Health to address us.
Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit, and you, the listening public, pleasant good evening to all. It is indeed a pleasure to be part of yet another press briefing. As of today, the record shows the total confirmed COVID-19 cases remain at 16, total active cases 3, total recovered cases 13, total COVID-related deaths, 0. Number of persons tested, 383. Number of negative results, 367. Number of contacts identified, 152. Number of contacts cleared, 152. Number of contacts under investigation, 0. And the number in the government quarantine remains at 10. You will notice that our COVID-19 status keeps improving on a daily basis. It is very encouraging and motivates us even more to continue the path that we have taken in managing our COVID-19 crisis. The majority of you, the citizens of Dominica, have been compliant with most of the measures and regulations put in place by the Ministry of Health. This is a major reason for our success so far. And for this, we applaud you and are extremely grateful. But we must remind you that this is no reason to be relaxed and lose focus. It has been a long while since we have walked in the public without a mask, been to the river or the beaches or the gym, or even walks at night. But it goes beyond this, because for many of us, our jobs, our livelihood, our daily sustenance has been affected. All of these conditions are dictated by the present COVID-19 pandemic. But your sacrifices being made are for the greater good of us all. Our technical team has been monitoring and assessing the developments as regards to COVID-19, both nationally and internationally. We know how fluid and dynamic this pandemic is, more so because it is new and to the world of medicine. This makes it even more necessary to play it day by day. It is very comforting that we have had no new case for the past 18 days. That is even why we continue our testing activities as part of case identification. In view of the above, our technical team has put forward recommendations as regards to making some amendments in relation to the SRO 15 of 2020. These recommendations are based on statistics, medical science available, the compliance shown by you, the public, and the accompanying socioeconomic factors. The recommendations, in addition to the services already functioning, would include insurance companies, laundry services, bookstores, and auto mechanic shops. However, the ministry further recommends that the following restrictions remain in place and should be reviewed at the end of the second cycle, which ends on May 4th, 2020. That is, closure of bars, nightclubs, game shops, closure of hair salons, closure of manicure and pedicure shops, closure of barber shops. The Ministry of Health will continue to review the situation and be proactive in its approach. Hopefully, our second 2-week cycle without a case will be on the 4th of May. At our previous briefs, you were informed of the ministry's intention to commence community testing sometime during the first week of May, which is the end of our second 2-week cycle. The objective of this community testing is to find out any existing or numbers of current and past symptomatic people that may be in the communities. Testing is one of the very important tools used in controlling the spread of this virus. This community testing will not be specific to communities where cases have been identified, and hence further information will be provided to you, the public, during the future briefings. These testings are meant to give us an idea of our immune status in the communities. Further recommendations can be made as deemed necessary after the 4th of May, when we shall review our situation. I must caution against complacency and letting down our guard. The world is nowhere close to being in complete control of COVID-19 pandemic, far less from being out of the woods. The recommendations which have been mentioned are meant to tell you that you must continue to do what you have been doing since they appear to be working. We must continue to adhere to all our hand washing exercises, respiratory etiquette regarding how we sneeze and how we cough, sanitizing and disinfecting our homes, workplaces, business places, proper wearing of masks, and physical distancing. Before I leave, I would like to extend our deepest gratitude and thanks to all our international donors, People's Republic of China, Republic of Cuba, Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Also, all our local businesses who have been contributing. And most importantly, all our frontline workers for a job well done. I thank you and God bless you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. McIntyre, for that presentation this evening. Again, there are some updates to the restrictions on island, but we ask that if you're unsure of what these updates are, once this press briefing is over, you can replay this press briefing on the YouTube page or the Facebook page of the Office of Prime Minister for specific instructions. And at this time, we welcome the Honorable Prime Minister to address us.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harry, and let me recognize my colleague and friend, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, the Minister for Health, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, and of course, the listening and viewing public. I want to greet all of you this Saturday evening, and to first of all to thank all of us in this country for respecting and adhering to the curfew and the stay indoors recommendation. I mean, I drove to my constituency today, and I drove back this evening, and I must say, driving from Rose all the way through Penville, people are respecting the curfew, and so I want to commend and congratulate all of us for this. This is for our own good. I understand some people may have a challenge of staying in one spot, but these things help. It helps as far as we've been advised to maintain the spread of the virus. I also take note of the very encouraging news as just revealed by the Minister for Health, that we have gone down now to the total active cases to 3. It was 6 yesterday, which means that 3 people would have recovered and discharged today, Saturday. and so I want to thank the medical staff, the nurses, and all the people who provide care to the patients. And this is good news. As you know, we've been seeking to do two things for the treatment of patients. One, to ensure that no one dies, and also to minimize the spread of the virus. And so far, thank God, all our people have recovered and recovered well. And so I want to recognize all those who have recovered and to pray for those who are the 3 people who are still in isolation, and hoping that very soon they too will be discharged and sent home to their families. I also want to caution our citizens that we must not look at these people in any negative way. This is not a crime. It is a virus which any one of us could have contracted, as we've seen people of different walks of life, different religions, different races, different nationalities have not been spared. And I don't want us to be looking at any person in any different way. As a matter of fact, the people would even need more encouragement and more support and more solidarity at this time than ever before. It is not my position to name anybody who would have contracted this virus, but I heard my very, very, very personal friend from Daly's, Mr. Gaspar. I heard him on radio last night, and he indicated to the public that he was tested positive along his wife, and he's recovered. And I want to say it was very nice hearing his voice, and the very positive approach which he has treated with this illness, and his outlook of life, and the commendation to the staff for the treatment which he received. And so I want to tell him that my thoughts and prayers will continue to be with him and his wife as they continue to move forward. And in respect to actions that we are taking in the country, whether it's from the closure of the ports, the closure of schools, to the curfew and the curfew hours, I have left this exclusively entirely to the health team to advise me and advise the cabinet on. Because I believe that decisions that are to be taken where COVID-19 is concerned need to be driven by the health professionals. And so we rely on them for advice and on these matters. And they met earlier this week, and they have submitted to me certain recommendations which we have agreed at cabinet. As time goes by, there is a need for review of the current situation, position of Dominica, where businesses is concerned, the ports are concerned, etc., etc. And so there was a review this week. My understanding, based on the documents before me, is that there'll be a further review on May 4th, which will be the end of the second cycle, so that further decisions can be taken. But as of tonight, the following actions will come to effect on Monday of next week. Recommendations coming from the health team, and they say that it was unanimously agreed upon. That opening hours of business places be extended from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Mondays to Fridays. So as it is currently with the law, we only have business operations from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're now extending it from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So it will be from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Mondays to Fridays. That the curfew remains as is. That is from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Mondays to Friday. And on weekends and holidays, complete lockdown. And as we said, there'll be a further review on May 4th. That the other decision that has been taken is that the passenger buses be allowed to transport 2 passengers per row, with strict adherence to the following. as you know, currently it is 1 passenger per row. The health officials are recommending that we could now have 2 passengers per row, but they have to follow the following adhere to the following guidelines: the sanitization of passengers' hands before entering the bus by the bus driver or the bus conductor. Compulsory wearing of face mask or covering of nose and mouth with cloth shield, and maintaining respiratory etiquette practices at all times, and keeping windows open as much as possible. Now, while the bus drivers have a responsibility and obligation, we as users of the service also have a responsibility to our own health. So you too should walk with your hand sanitizer, with your alcohol. Make sure you have your face mask or a cloth shield, because we must protect ourselves from people, but we must also protect people from ourselves. And that's the way it's going to help to maintain the spread. The lifting of the ban on liquor licenses to allow for purchase only and not consumption at points of sale. And I am already hearing people screaming from the living rooms that we lifted the ban on liquor licenses. But we're lifting the ban on liquor licenses, but you cannot go in what we call the rum shops and socialize there and drink there. If you have to buy liquor or alcoholic beverages, you have to purchase them and go to your homes with them. You will not be able to consume it at the point of purchase. So as of Monday, we are lifting the ban on liquor licenses to allow for purchase only and not consumption at point of sale. Another decision that has been taken is to allow for sale of fresh produce by vendors at the Roseau Market, and of course the Portsmouth Market as well, Mondays to Fridays at designated areas up to 4 p.m. So Mondays to Friday up to 4 p.m. as well. And that in order to maintain safe distancing between stalls, preventing crowding of streets leading to the market, and prevention of the sale of produce on the sidewalk in the city, we have considered and will be allowing, of course they give us a day on Monday to put systems in place so we can get it effected on Tuesday. We'll be allowing the use of space on the bayfront for vendors with pickup vans, and this will help to reduce on the litter in the city, because those of us who would have used the Roseau Market or traversed across the Roseau Market would recognize that the streets around flow and social security, is very difficult to get by, and there's always a crowding taking place there. But we appreciate the fact that people are trying to make a dollar, people are trying to sell their produce, and they want to be as close to the market as possible. So we're trying to find a responsible compromise by allowing people to use the bayfront to sell their fresh produce, so in order to spread the vendors and to spread and to minimize the mass gathering that would normally take place along the streets. But I think by and large people are cooperating, but with the extension of the number of days, the extension of the time, and allowing for greater use of space, we believe that could certainly assist with the crowding issue that we have. We have to continue maintaining the avoidance of large gatherings, limiting to 10 persons, as well as maintaining specified distance between each person. Restaurants and food places should continue with pickup only up to 4 p.m. So restaurants and food places can continue to open, but with pickup only, and they've now been extended as well to 4 p.m. So these are some of the decisions taken. Dr. McIntyre would have also highlighted some of the businesses that will have to remain closed, and those will be revisited on May 4th. So I want to thank the health team and the health professionals for the guidance and for the advice which they have provided to us, and we're very grateful for this. Now, on some other fronts, the issue of opening up the country, the ports of entry, it is something that we have discussed at the regional level, because what we're seeking to ensure that once we reopen, we are all following some of the same protocols, because we are all connected in every facet. And so we're developing at the regional level some regional policies where borders are concerned, and which would guide us in our whole approach to the reopening of our ports, when, obviously different countries will have to adapt some aspect of it or change some aspect of it, but there'll be, generally speaking, an overarching set of policies and guidelines which we all can follow going forward. But of course, the issue of opening reports will have to be advised by the health professionals. And as I said, and of course the issue of the regional economy and the impact of this, we continue to engage ourselves at the regional level. Some countries so far have articulated certain policies that they put in place at a national level, but certainly there's going to have to be greater collaboration and cooperation among our nations to see us through this very challenging and difficult period, and because none of us know how long this is gonna stay with us, and every day there is a review of the impact of COVID-19 on our economies and our way of life. So we will continue to do this. As I have said before, this is not a time to rush to make decisions. This is not a time for us to react to any voices out there, actions which we need to take to spur the economy, to stabilize the economy, and to stimulate the economy, will be certainly be properly looked at and analyzed, so that once we present our final set of policies and programs and projects which we believe can stimulate the economy, then we shall share this with the country. So, for example, the issue of people who have lost their jobs, the Dominican Social Security has a fund of about $12 million. I have approved for $8 million of this to be set aside to help people who would have lost their jobs, and plus an additional a minimum of $9.5 million added to that from government in the first instance. And of course, how you go about benefiting from this, how much each person would receive based on the person's income level, this will be articulated in a more comprehensive statement from me as the Prime Minister, hopefully before the end of next week. But we intend to roll this over immediately, so that those who have lost their income, they could have some income support to provide for themselves, pay the rent, and to buy food for the families. Obviously, small businesses, we're looking at the issue of both a combination of some grants and some loans that would assist small businesses to recover and to move forward. So, but we'll be articulating, giving you more details as to how you apply, how you benefit, what are the terms and conditions of this. We also involved heavily in the mobilization of funds. No one country, obviously, if your revenue has dropped dramatically, impacted dramatically, because you have two things. You're not getting revenue in because of the no significant commercial activity or trade, and this is not a time for you to go to knock at the business place and say, well, don't forget you have not deposited your outstanding amounts to the treasury. So even those who are owing are unable to, in this circumstance, to remit, and the day-to-day activities in the state you're not bringing in. So you have a significant challenge. And in our case, we are committed to paying full salaries at the end of this month, which is extraordinary in this circumstance to public officers, and including the NEP, for example. Most of whom who have not been engaged, who have been home. And the NEP alone is $3.8 million a month. But we're committed to this. We're committed to ensuring that the seniors, the 70 and over allowance is paid, and those who want public assistance. We continue to make some payments, not in full payments to students studying overseas, and keeping our commitments to them. While we are engaging in our creditors as a grouping from a CARICOM point of view, because we're seeking to approach this from a regional standpoint, we have to pay our debts. Because unless you negotiate special arrangements or debt forgiveness or deferral of payments of interest and loans, you have to pay it, because you have to keep to your commitment. And that's to say to the people of Dominica, notwithstanding Erica and Maria, with 90% of our economy and 226% of our GDP impacted respectively, we have not defaulted on one debt payment. Because we wanted to keep our commitment. And even persons whom we owe for who have provided goods and services to us, the whole idea is to ensure we can pay you, so that in itself we can have additional funds circulating in the economy and creating the impact. We also fine-tuning and reviewing our own food export. Export of fresh agricultural produce. We have never stopped exporting. We have continued to export under certain protocols, certain guidelines, but we're seeking to increase our export of fresh produce to the various countries. The challenge we have in some countries is that because they're completely locked down or shut down, their ports are not working or functioning as they did prior to COVID-19. But we are engaging governments directly to see what kind of facilitation they can provide to our hucksters, to Dexter and to others, to get the produce to them in greater quantity, and more and greater frequency. And I believe if we can address this, then we would certainly see an increased opportunity for foreign exchange, the sale of agricultural produce, and ensuring that our farmers can continue to sell their produce. The other thing that we have done, and we heard the very comprehensive report from the Minister of Agriculture, in what the Minister of Agriculture has been doing to support farmers, utilizing the funds from the World Bank and providing inputs and planting material to farmers. We've also been providing seedlings and planting material to commercial farmers, and we've also been providing seedlings and planting material to many families across the country who would like to engage themselves in backyard gardening. I have read where some people have criticized this to some extent, but in situations like this, we have to ensure that we can maintain our food security, that people can have things to eat. People can have 3 meals in this country. And while the government will play its part, there are some things individuals can do to also assure themselves of 3 meals. And what is it? Backyard gardening has been part of our tradition for many centuries. We have lost some of it a bit because we have more middle class people in the country than we had 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and people don't have backyard. People concrete their yard, and they put tiles all in the yard and so on. So people don't have backyard, but it is amazing the number of people across Dominica who are participating in this backyard gardening. a significant number of people are involved in it, and it's good for the children. It's a way of engaging the children and getting their minds off being in this lockdown situation, and families can appreciate the importance of agriculture. We have also started. We did a pilot test of what will become a national program of the government itself facilitating the purchase of agricultural produce. And in this pilot alone, we have been able to impact or purchase from 201 farmers across Dominica. And we're able to pay them either within the day or the following day of the transaction. And so one can appreciate the extent of the funds circulating in these villages. People who have eggs, we purchase from them. Yams, dashing, potatoes, you name it, we have acquired from the farmers. And this is what we're gonna need. This is why we're gonna have to speak. I said to the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Trade, we're gonna have to call in the supermarkets, because we need to find a responsible way of reducing on the import of agricultural produce and making greater use of the local produce that we have in Dominica. I know that all of the supermarkets in Dominica, with no exception, have been very supportive of farmers in Dominica. And so this is not to say that they're not. It is just to say that in this situation we need to buy more. And so there has to be an improved relationship between the farmers and their clients and the supermarkets. That we must maintain consistency of supply. We have to have a properly negotiated price, and there must be greater transparency in the whole arrangements. Because my farmers in Salisbury and Monrachet and so on, they have lots of watermelon. This is watermelon time. Should we be importing watermelon into Dominica? That's a decision for consumers to make, because we have a free economy. But we need to know who the farmers in Salisbury and Monrachet who have watermelon. How much can you supply? How much do the supermarkets need on a weekly basis? And what the price is? And so that we can make this happen. The park house needs to be a little bit more organized. There's there's some structural challenges that we are going to fix in there, and then we need to get this going. We have we are also reviewing the operations of the abattoir to further give them further support, so that they could buy more chicken and pork, and be in a better position to pay the suppliers in a more timely fashion. And if we can get these things moving, that's what's gonna be needed in this country. So yes, we will be supporting people whose income have been impacted, but we have to ensure that the farmers and the export of agricultural produce is fully supported and fully encouraged. There are a number of capital projects that we're putting in place, from the World Bank, for example. We have the $40 million that we're seeking to push for implementation, so that we can increase employment, increase the circulation of money into the economy. Just imagine if we can get in the next several months this $40 million US, which is 104 million EC dollars, being spent in the economy. One can appreciate the impact. We are about on the threshold of signing a major contract under the disaster vulnerability risk project. That is the road from Bois-Diab, Emerald Pool area, down to Castle Bruce, across to the Carnago territory and to Pegua. I do not want to quote the contractual sum, because they have to further negotiations have to take place between the two parties. But this is going to be a significant investment, and I believe that once we finalize the payments to the farmers, and I'm hoping we can do so early May, that is the only outstanding hindrance. We have already agreed to contract The additional sum of money is required to effect the full works, which is about 12 million or so US dollars additional. And once we can pay the farmers, the farmers for the crops and the landowners for the land, we are ready to sign, conclude the contract, sign the contract, and start the mobilization of this project. And of course, this is going to be important because all of these things will create jobs. Truckers will be employed, heavy equipment will be employed, people would be employed, money will be circulating, and that's what we'll be seeking to do. There are a number of other housing projects that you're gonna see started immediately. What we're gonna be doing is utilizing a lot more local contractors. For example, we have health centers being built now. I believe about 8 of them now. And we have a local contractor who built the one in Portsmouth, Georgetown. And I can say to you that he has passed the test with flying colors. And he has gotten a second contract for the one in Bacatel. And so persons who believe that they have the capacity to use the technology that the developers are using, we're prepared to engage you. And even with the housing projects that we have, we're going to cut them into pieces, so to speak, to allow for a greater number of contractors to be engaged and more local contractors to be engaged. So if in the community, there's one community, for example, we're going to build some 70 homes. The idea is to break it down into pieces of 3 homes each or 4 homes each and give it to give 4 homes or 3 homes to each contractor to build. And one can understand the people who you need to employ, the trucking needs to engage, so that we can get our contractors working directly as contractors, earning and so forth. So by next week, Wednesday or so, we'll put an announcement out where people can get themselves registered if they have an interest in building these homes and building these health centers. So work is ongoing. On Wednesday, we will have the largest pour of concrete in the country at any one time on the Marigot Hospital. I was advised that 1,000 cubic yards of concrete will be poured on the foundation of that hospital on Wednesday next week. So we are pushing these projects. This is why we've allowed some construction to take place, respecting the social distancing, to ensure that people can be employed. But these facilities, these hospitals, these health centers are important. We are just a month away from the hurricane season. Just a month away from the hurricane season. And so while we are dealing with COVID-19, the government now has to deal with preparation for the hurricane season. And in the first week of May, we're going to have a meeting of NEPO to start looking at our own preparations in the country. And this is why we're pushing housing. And in the next few weeks, we'll be handing over keys to over 105 residences, to 105 families, to get them into those homes before the hurricane season, so that we will have 105 families more who will be in a less vulnerable circumstance at the start of the hurricane season. So when I hear little voices that, what's Skerritt and the government doing about this and that, there are some things that you have to work on behind the scenes, because it requires working behind the scenes. It requires analysis by advisors. But rest assured, we've done this before. Obviously, it's a different circumstance. This is unlike a hurricane, but it has a even greater economic impact because of the fact that the whole world is in a lockdown or shutdown mode. Nobody's gaining revenue, but you are spending, and you're unable to give a firm conclusion of what would how much money you're going to need to really address this issue. So this is why we're going to be, where the income is the income support is concerned, I believe we're going to be looking at a 6 months period in the first instance and see how it goes from there. So that we can assure people of a 6 months income if the need is necessary. Our hope is that those persons who have lost their jobs, that with the income support from the government, both the government funds and social security funds, that people can be at work, and so the difference they could maybe get from the employer. If not, then they would have something to pay the bills. And that's to say, this is an extraordinary period. We all have to work together. We all have to go through the sacrifice to make life better for all of us. This cannot be you and them or us and them. This is our country, and we need to ensure that we can work together to overcome things. Now, I've listened to the bus drivers. I've met some of them, obviously, through the use of technology, and I understand the challenge that they're going through with the reduction in number of people which they have to carry, and respect that. But I understand the economic decision in increasing the bus fare. I mean, I understand this, but I would caution against these extraordinary increases that I'm hearing. All I will say to the bus drivers, that they are, in the scheme of things, like the people with the salon who've been impacted, the barbers and so forth, and some of the other small enterprises, the bars and the nightclubs and so forth. You're also a very special group. You're also a very special group because you have been impacted, both by the restriction in the law, but also through a natural occurrence. People are not coming out. People are staying home. So even if we were to lift this completely, there are people who will still not want to go on a bus that has 15 people in it. People have been reading about COVID-19 and they're studying this thing. That now everybody is a medical expert in this country. So we have this understanding, but rest assured, I will be in my address in respect to the fiscal measures. You will have some special consideration in these measures. Let us say bus drivers and bus owners. So let us work with each other to see this through. But rest assured, your government, this government that I have the honor to lead, we look after the people of Dominica as we've done in the past. We have been an extraordinarily generous government, and conscientious government, and compassionate government, and understanding government. But we also have always been responsible, because running a country requires you to be two things, essentially, responsive and responsible. And so we have to find a path that will allow the two to coexist. I do not want to come and take a decision that could have untold fiscal implications down the road. And when you take decisions that have serious fiscal implications down the road, guess who is going to pay for it? We, the people of Dominica. And we may not be in a position to pay for it. And so, even from the public service standpoint, we should be we should consider ourselves very, very fortunate to have the opportunity to receive our full salaries. Because we understand the situation and we have to hold each other's hands. I mean, after Hurricane Maria, we didn't only pay every public service of salary unbroken up to today, but including people who had lost their jobs in the private sector. There are some people whose salary in the private sectors were impacted after Maria that we only stopped paying the salaries in January of this year. And there were people who were full-time employees of certain companies that we were underwriting their salaries. So we understand these things. And we know that people are looking to us for some support. But let us do things in a serious manner as we're doing. Let us do so in a responsible manner are we doing. And let us not rush things as we're currently doing. We're not rushing things. Let us understand this. And trust me, my dear brothers and sisters. You know, I'm not in the business of playing games with people. I don't make promises to people that I can't keep. And if I make a promise to you, I will ensure that I keep it. And so I will be responsive to the needs of the people who are affected. But I also have a duty and a fiduciary responsibility to be responsible. And I do not have the luxury of being in the spectator stands. I am right in the center of the field. You know, bowling, you know, not doing much batting, but fielding. You see what I'm saying? I'm bowling and fielding, you know, after doing the hard work. So, and I have no problem with this, but rest assured that we will certainly provide to the people. I believe that the farmers, this is a time for us to support local, to eat what we grow, things that we've been hearing for so long, so many years, and it has come to this, to draw to our conscience the need for us to look at what we have in Dominica and what we can do with what we have in Dominica. Even where education is concerned, and I want to commend the Minister of Education, the Minister, and the many principals and teachers who in this circumstance have created avenues and mechanisms for providing tuition or classes to all our children. And the ministry, with the support of the principals and teachers in many respects, you know, have tailored programs where no one is left out. So even in communities where we have some internet challenge or internet challenges, teachers have been able to be creative and to get the students to have access to schoolwork, assignments, and have a mechanism where they could get these assignments to the teachers. And I do not want to be parochial in my view on this, but even my principal at the Penville Primary School, you know, they have not this, and our teachers, they have not only created very student-centered approaches where every child is being touched, but they're also facilitating students who attend the post-secondary school who reside in Penville to access the internet facility at the Penville Primary School, obviously in a very organized fashion to maintain the social distancing and so forth. And it is working very well. So teachers have been very, very creative, very, very supportive. And I think these things will work more where it is seen as a collaboration, as a partnership, where parents, teachers, students, the wider community can all work together in the circumstance to access it. Where we have some internet challenge, I know that we have been working with the telecom providers, and also with the NTRC has been working with Minister George to improve access to those communities. Obviously, there's some delays in the implementation of those actions, but we are pushing forward. And so, even with this, in these circumstances, we can find ways of it. All I will say to parents, sincerely, it will be nice, to use a simple word, if every child will have access to a device. But I don't think you should hurt your head about spending money now to buy a device for a child. If you can afford it, great. But if you cannot afford it, let the school know, and they will meet your child, and they will provide your child tailor-made a program for your child in the circumstances and so on. So don't hurt your head too much about tablet and laptop in this time at all. Going forward, and even when you look at the agreement we have with the Digicel, this is part of our agreement to put the infrastructure in place at all schools in Dominica, to create the platform to provide opportunities for the use of technology. And even before that, we had this one tablet per child, which was heavily criticized by some, when we delivered tablets to every child in Dominica. And this is something that we are even looking at to complement the infrastructure that we put in place, we have put in place in many of the schools across Dominica. And so this is an initiative that the ministry is going to reflect upon and advise me on later. But I really want to commend them for this. Again, I want to thank the Ministry of Health, the minister, all of the staff. I don't want to mention names because I have to mention so many people. But it would be remiss of me not to mention, I have highlighted the efforts of the lab superintendent, Mrs. Gemma, who is an exceptional public servant and very professional with her approach. But I think within there we also have some fantastic people, and I want to highlight Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, and I think sometimes these circumstances allow people to come to the fore, who I believe on normal circumstances should come to the fore. And I'm hoping that it's an opportunity now for public officers to understand that they are leaders and they're providing a service to the nation, and that they also have an obligation to inform and educate the masses of what the state is doing for and on behalf of the people of Dominica. And we should not only wait for the circumstances to say all of the fine things that are happening within the public service. Because all we hear about is negatives. When people talk about the Ministry of Health or the hospital, you only hear negatives. But there are many fine things happening, being done by these people. And so I am very, very pleased to note the exceptional professional of Mr. Jones and his public presentations. I mean, these guys should really be educating the next generation, and ensuring that the knowledge that they have and the skills that they have can be properly passed on to succeeding generation, so we can build a greater reservoir of middle managers within the public service. So there are a lot of positive things happening in this. Finally, to the people who have availed themselves to provide care and services to COVID patients, with all of what we have done, all of what we put in place as a government and so forth will come to naught if we didn't have you. The people who are cleaning the facilities, the domestic people, the drivers, the firemen and so forth, ambulance drivers, and the nurses, the doctors, who have to come into direct contact and have interaction with the patients. And the majority of these people volunteered. They came forward and said, I want to be part of it. And I think this is extraordinary. This is extraordinary. And I believe the government will be considering, needs to consider, and certainly will be considering some special recognition for these frontline people. And certainly we will be doing that. On the issue of opening up the ports. I know there are people working on the cruise lines who want to come home. I know that there are students who want to come home. Actually, I'm meeting with maybe about 200 students at 8 o'clock tonight via Zoom. Students who are in China, in the United States, and University of Western's various campuses, Canada, United Kingdom, Morocco, and students from all over. I think maybe about 200 of them this evening, to discuss with them their own situation, to hear from them, really, their own situation and their own anxieties and how things are with them. I know quite a few of them would like to come home. As we've always said, we would like to facilitate our citizens to come home, because this is your country. And this is why we have facilitated people coming to the country, because they're Dominicans, that's their home. But what we are going to be doing in the Ministry of Health, in the government system, is ensure that we have very transparent guidelines and conditions that could be publicized as far as possible, so everybody understands what are the terms and conditions, what are the guidelines we have to follow if we're to facilitate people coming into the country. The Ministry of Health also has to take in consideration the issue of staffing, because everybody who is going to come into this country must go to 14-day quarantine in a government facility. Because yes, we have had now 13 people recovered and have been discharged, but that does not mean that we no longer have people. We don't have anybody who may be out there with this, and if countries are still under lockdown and under curfew, and we have people coming from all of these different ports, this is a risk, and we have to assess the risk, and we need to be advised what do you put in place to mitigate the risk, to minimize the impact of the risk on our society. Because the worst thing you want to have is for these 3 people to go home, and then there's a second wave in this country. And every time you get a new case, it pushes you back at least 21 days or 14 days forward, which means that you have to extend the circumstance under which so every time you get a case, you now have to go to contact tracing, you have to go stay, and it keeps this situation alive. What we're praying to God for is that these 3 people can go home, that the staff can get a break, they can get an opportunity for 14-day quarantine, and they can go and hug their children and their husbands and their wives, whom they have not seen in weeks. Thank God for Zoom and for WhatsApp video calls, and people can be able to see the people but not be able to touch them physically and so forth. And so we're hoping that we can get a break from this virus in this country. So people who have been at this since January, February can finally get a break, and they can recharge their batteries. And so we have to manage the risk as far as possible. So far as a country, we've been doing well, but that does not justify sending 14 people home. Justifies praise to God, but it does not call for us to go in the streets and say we're COVID-free in Dominica and things are back to normal and open the every country scared and so forth, and I mean, it's what I'm saying. So we have to be very, very careful. This is why, I leave this to the Ministry of Health to advise me on this thing. And they wrote to me, and I did not change, not even where I may have seen a comma should not be. I did not change it. I went exactly with what they advised me to do, and what decisions they asked us to take. And this is how we have been operating, and I believe this is how we should continue to operate for the safety of all of us in Dominica. So let us not take. We have a responsibility to ourselves. So yes, the government, the Ministry of Health will do all what it has to do, but we have to take our own precautions, because Your health is in your hands. Your health is your responsibility. And so we need to take hold of this. And so I don't want us to lose sleep about the stimulus package. Rest assured, the government will be responsive, but responsible, and you do not want government to take decisions that could harm you down the road. So I'm not in the business of saying sweet things. We have to be responsive but responsible, and that's why we have to do. And this is why we have tried as far as possible to find a responsible balance between the management of the COVID-19 and allowing certain activities to go along. And as time goes by, as people go home from the isolation center, then we'll further assess things. So the next assessment will be done on May 4th, where very well there may be certain actions that we can allow, activities that we can allow. But let us hold for the next few days. Let us see how it goes, and then we can get back to you and see what additional actions we have to take. And so I understand that the longer we stay away from work, the more impactful it is on the bottom line and our pockets and so forth. But if you have all of the money in the bank and you're dead, who are you going to leave it for? So it's better that you have $10 less in the bank and you're alive to enjoy the rest than to have all of the money in the bank and not live to enjoy it. And I'm sure that we all know this and we will accept this. So, and of course, we'll be providing support to needy families across the country. We'll be reaching out to families and institutions which provide care to seniors and to children, and to ensure that we all in the country can have something adequate at all times for ourselves and for our families. And so I want to thank you, I want to thank the Minister, and thank all of you, Miss Harry. Thank you for your exceptional job. I mean, always on top of the information and the manner in which you facilitate these public encounters. The PS, who is not seen, or who is not heard or even seen sometimes, that's Mrs. Lestred White. Been exceptional. This is not. It's a hell of a task of PS has in health. With running the Ministry of Health, with all the number of things going on, plus this in itself requires its own Ministry of Health. This COVID-19, I can tell you, but she's holding the fort nicely, and I want to commend her for this and for her efforts and so on. And to all the people who continue to provide the support, we're very grateful. But let us continue to be safe. Let us not pressure the government to open the country too quickly and in an irresponsible manner. And anyway, you can put pressure on the government if you want, but I'm not going to respond to it. So you can put all the pressure on the government out, reopen the country and free up the country and all these things. I hear you, I hear everybody. Trust me, I mean everybody. All the Facebook posts, I see them. All the radio programs, I hear them. So I hear the whispers on the streets. So I hear you, but just to say to you, my simple response to you is that we're taking action to protect you. You may not see it now, but you may see it later. And where the economy is concerned and where your personal circumstance is concerned, we shall provide for you. Okay? So God bless us for going into this Sunday, and we hope that very soon we can go back to our normal duties, normal activities, having overcome this dreaded virus, COVID-19. Thank you, and God bless our country.
Our thanks to the Honorable Prime Minister. And just to reiterate a few points made by the Prime Minister, a few changes to the restrictions. First of all, the hours of operation have been extended for authorized business places. So Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Again, that's for authorized business places. And we'd like to remind these business places of the recommendations by the Ministry of Health that physical distancing of 6 feet be adhered to with clear markings at the business places. Giving of appointments as much as possible wherever it's applicable in order to avoid any large congregations. The wearing of masks for everyone who comes into those business places to access services. The sanitization of hands to be done for each individual prior to entering and upon exiting the business places. And of course, we continue to ask that you adhere to all the law enforcement guidelines. The curfew remains in effect. Lockdown on weekends and during the weekdays from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Buses, you are now allowed to have 2 passengers per seat instead of 1. Of course, we also ask that you follow these guidelines, including the sanitization of the hands of every passenger, the wearing of masks or covering of faces of every passenger, and keeping the windows open as much as possible. The liquor licenses can now be resumed, and that means that the sale of liquor is authorized. However, there should be no congregating of people at the points of purchase. The market open from Monday to Friday up to 4 p.m. The bayfront will soon be used and allocated for those vendors with pickups and trucks. Of course, we ask that there be no large gatherings more than 10 people. Restaurants, you can be open, but for pickup purposes only and until 4 p.m. The ports of entry in our country remain closed. Again, bars, nightclubs, salons, barbershops, and the lot, you are to remain closed. Ladies and gentlemen, again, 18 days without a new case of Covid-19 in Dominica. We all deserve a pat on the back. We all deserve to be commended for our efforts. But as we always say, that does not mean we have to let our guard down. We need to remain vigilant. Also, let's continue to provide support for each other. Physically, we do have to remain distant, but now more than ever, it's important to provide that emotional and psychological support to each other. Thank you for your time and attention as always. Have a good evening.